Welcome to Celtic Chalk Talk. Another week, week 4. We're going to look at the 4 games they played and have some observations about them. We're going to be on each Monday throughout the season. My name's Steve Perello. I'm a lifelong Celtic fan, rooted for them since the Bill Russell days. Tells you a little bit about my age. But this week, we're going to talk about a little bit about the Celtics and their week. First thing they did, they lost to Utah by 3 in a very upsetting game. Couple things went on. Well, first thing you saw if you watched it, the Utah had a big lineup. It took Boston right out of their game. They couldn't rebound. We're going to talk more about that like I do every week. The other thing that was glaring was Boston shot 10 for 51 from 3. Now, I have a definite feel about the 3-point shots. I believe this. If you're open, shoot the ball. And they were open. They were good shots. They just were ice cold. And when you think about that, 3-point shot allows a bad team to beat a good team on a given night, which is great. Also, a good team to lose to a bad team. Boston was better than Utah. They didn't shoot well. It's a very good fact. And I based something on years ago. I went to see the Celtics play in New Orleans, and Marcus Smart was out before the game. And I really think everybody, if you go to a game, watch the guys come out before a game and go through a little workout. Marcus Smart was shooting threes. Now, Marcus Smart was not a good shooter. He made 10 straight threes from various areas on the court. The realization was these guys are great shooters when they're open. So that's why, to use my thought, that if you're open, shoot the ball. And depending on the context of the offense, but most times you should shoot the ball. That's just how it works. The game against Utah was one of the most frustrating losses of all time. Jalen Brown had a great game, 36 points. Boston opened the game leading 14-2, and it looked like a blowout win because Utah's on the road. They just got blown out the night before, and so on. What hurt them was the defensive rebounding. Put a putback at the end of the game. We're going to talk more about the rebounding situation. It seems like I'm talking about it every week. But ultimately, the Celtics lost the game because of that putback at the end. One other thing I want to mention, there was a call where Jalen Brown, somebody fell in front of Jalen, and he went flying with about 30, 40 seconds left in the game. There was no call. Now, in the NBA last 2-minute report, they said the foul was missed. That was a big call that helped cost them the game. But when you go through it, if you don't rebound and you don't shoot, you're going to have trouble winning anytime. The next game there in the week was against Washington. Now, Washington's hurting. I was impressed with Alex Sarr and his ability to shoot and play. But the Wizards, they're on a long rebuild. That's the nicest thing you could say. They won it by 30. It was really easy. Jalen Brown had 35 in 26 minutes only. What was impressive, Kata played very well. Double Minot played well. And Jordan Walsh, a guy we didn't hear much about and seemed to be buried as the last man on the team, he played well. And the bench was great. The Celtics got off to a horrible first quarter. But from that moment on, they just took over the game and just really blew out the Wizards. So that evened it off. Then they went Friday night. They went over to Orlando for a 2-game series, Friday, Sunday. The Friday game was quite a frustrating game. The Celtics played, and it was an even game, fairly even, till down the stretch, and Orlando just put it away. Boston didn't execute at the end of the game, which is a very upsetting thing. The other thing that Boston did was they fouled too much. They constantly, and they're always putting the other team in the bonus and giving away points. That goes with a defense that is aggressive and pressuring and so on. And it's something you got to live with unless they can change and become a bigger team and a better team in that way. Ugo, Minot, Josh Minot, and Jordan Walsh. Again, Jordan Walsh played well, but the three of them were good disruptors, and they played a very good game. Now, they lose the game and down the stretch, as I said, but they played well. Jalen Brown had 32, and he continued his onslaught over everybody. Last night, they played Orlando again, and it looked like it was going to be the same result down the stretch. There was an 1-point game back and forth. Good game to watch. And what happened? It was really interesting what went on. All of a sudden, Boston put, in the end of the third, they put Ugo and Walsh into the game. They came in and they were great. Ugo hit a big three. Walsh hit two threes, including one with about 30 seconds, 20 seconds left to put the game away, put Boston up by, I believe, 5. And that was the big shot of the game. The energy that those guys bring changes games. The other guy I can't say enough about was Luca Garza. He had 16 and 8 rebounds. He's a wider body. That helps Boston with their lack of size, strength, and size. So he really came in, and after Kata fouled out, he really was a key down the stretch. The other thing I have to mention, Anthony Simons. Boston played the first quarter. Joe Mazzulla used 2 timeouts in the first 6 minutes. Why? Because there was no energy. Boston wasn't playing hard. In the second quarter, Anthony Simons came in. And in the second quarter, now again, I'm going to repeat this. In just the second quarter, Anthony Simons went off for 25 points. And he single-handedly brought Boston back from a 14-point deficit early to a tie at halftime. Down the stretch, Boston, this time, was able to execute, including Jordan Walsh's big three. Jalen Brown, again, over 20 points in the game. Jalen Brown hit a big three down the stretch, too, with about a minute left or so. And that kept Boston going. But Jordan Walsh's energy, steals, all the little things, he did help Boston. Now, you could talk about Jordan Walsh for a while. I never saw this coming. He's playing great basketball. Now, he's playing so well that Joe Mazzulla played him for the fourth quarter. The whole fourth quarter. He didn't take him out. Think about that. This is a guy that was the last guy on the team, has moved himself into one of the 5 guys at the end of a game. His energy, he had his hands around the ball. He was stealing, helping, flicking balls for steals, and getting everything going. And the big knock on Walsh has always been he can't shoot. Hit a big three at the end of the game. Jordan Walsh moved himself up into a better situation for the Celtics. And you will see him get playing time, more time. Couple observations of the week. Boston goes on their defensive rebounding. I know I've said it numerous times. They need to get a wide body big. Kata is a nice player developing, but he's not wide. If you go back to the Utah game, Celtics lead by 1. Utah has the ball with a few seconds left. They miss a shot. Keyshawn George misses a 10-footer he could have made, but the rebound comes off as Joseph Nurkic. Now, Kata was inside him, but Nurkic got the rebound and put it back. That loses the... This stuff goes on all the time. Now, I want to point out a statistic that might be of interest. When Boston, better yet, between 75 and 80% you should get in rebounds, defensive rebounds, meaning if you combine defensive rebounds with the other team's rebounding, their offensive rebounding, you should get 75 to 80% at least, usually. In the game against Utah, 68% was all Boston in the defensive rebounding, some of the shots taken. Against Washington, 77%. See what happens when you rebound. 73% in the first Orlando game, Boston lost, and 75% last. So you're seeing a pattern here. That's the thing. Now, if you are a Celtic fan, which I hope most of us are here, you'll realize when Boston plays a wide-body team, they're in trouble. Go back to a week before against Houston. They got blown out. Steven Adams and Şengün. Boston can't compete with that. That's a factor. Boston, and I don't know what they want to do, but if they go out and get somebody who get a wide body, this team is pretty good. They can do much better. The key here is that I talked a little bit about the three-point shooting. That's an important piece, and Boston has to shoot better. Derek White and Peyton Pritchard have to up their percentage to where it was last year. If it doesn't happen, we got a problem. The energy guys, I call them, Ugo and Walsh and Mata, we need them. They are good, and they're developing a bench. Now, Luca Garza, if he can continue what he did last night, it'll just make that bench better. Don't forget, Anthony Simons is on the bench. So look at what you have here. You've got a nice little bench developing. Those are big things. And again, to reiterate, Walsh was on the court at the end of the game, says something. Peyton Pritchard, I'm going to call him a mini Jalen Brunson. Now, he's not in Jalen Brunson's class, but he can get into the paint, the smallest guy on the court, gets in the paint, and with his footwork and his ability to play off somebody, meaning bumping and pushing back and falling back away, he can get more open jumpers in the paint than most players, somewhat like Jalen Brunson, not nearly as good. Pritchard's footwork is outstanding, and he's a really good shooter. So that's good. Another negative would be that Boston fouls too often. I mentioned it earlier. It's going to be a part of being an aggressive defensive team. But it is frustrating to look at the fouls and notice that Boston is putting the other team in the bonus for the last 6 minutes of a quarter. That's going to hurt you, and it does hurt them because that team is shooting 2 uncommon fouls. It's got to get better for Boston to continue to improve. That's it for this week. Those are some of the things, some of the observations. We'll be back at it next week. It's really great to talk about the Celtics, thing that we all love. Thank you.